Hello everyone and welcome in this video in which International Master Robert Ries and yours truly are going to have a look at Game 4 of the World Championship match between World Champion Magnus Carlsen and WCM his challenger. As you probably know, yesterday in Game 3 WCM managed to equalize the score with a very fine win. Today everybody was curious how he was going to meet e4. He did it with c5, knight f3 and e6. Robbie, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, actually it's a bit of a surprise, and I think it's a good sign. It's probably one of the sharpest possibilities for black to play against one e4. So yeah, credits to Fishy for his fighting spirit.
I was a bit disappointed by g3 actually. You too?
Yeah, you're hoping for an open Sicilian, but for Max, you cannot really expect that.
Of course, this would have been the dream, a dream come true to get this open fighting, typical Sicilian kind of play. But well, it's not Magnus his thing, so I guess we weren't really allowed to expect that, yeah.
Sure, yeah. I think what we see in the next couple of moves is it's a slow game, and Magnus is not really into a theoretical fight. So
it's typical
yeah.
Magnus, his approach to openings, I guess. He doesn't make very unnatural moves. He of course makes all the natural moves, but he doesn't go for the opening fight that so many other top players are aiming for right from the start. He just wants to get a playable position, and it seems he got it here.
Yeah, and even he doesn't really care about getting an advantage at all. He just wants to get a position, and even if it's just slightly worse, he just plays the game and see how it develops.
Right, now here was a small surprise, bishop g4, because I think short castle is the move that is usually played here, but I don't think there can be much wrong with developing a piece with gain of tempo. And here it's probably nice to know that f3 is not really a desirable move, because you, first of all, you limit the scope of your bishop, but also you weaken in general the construction on the king side. So I can imagine that Magnus moved his queen in this position. We were a bit surprised about queen d3, right?
Yeah, I think the queen is more naturally placed on d2.
Right.
On d3, it's becoming a little bit more vulnerable. It can easily be attacked by black's minor pieces after he hit castle. So ideas like knight c6 to e5 for bishop rerouted to g6 via h5. You see that the queen is a bit vulnerable. And
but on the other hand, we saw in the game that he had quite a clear intention. He wants to develop his knight from d2 to f3.
Yeah, so
that's the upside of his move.
Yeah, okay. There's nothing wrong with the move queen to d3. It's there are some pros and cons of such moves, and I think what he tries in the game is it was worth giving a try at least. So after queen d3, what did black play? He played queen d7.
Queen d7. Of course, he wants to prevent the move h2 h3, because that would give white an easy hand. So short knight, knight d2, short castle, knight to f3. Okay, everything according to plan. It's the typical kind of Magnus position, I would say. Yeah, with his last move. Sorry.
I think Magnus was quite happy here with the outcome of the position, and I'm pretty sure that Fishy committed a slight inaccuracy here. He played the move rook to e8.
Yeah, that surprised me a lot. Yeah, I completely agree with you. Yeah, that surprised me a lot.
I think that White's idea had been to, by bringing the knight to f3, to take on c6,
right,
eliminating the important defender of the e5 square. So after taking, he can play knight to e5, and after the queen moves, White will just grab the pair of bishops by taking on g4, and for example, after queen b7 and take on g4, bishop d4, let's say bishop to f6, I think White can claim a very stable, risk-free advantage.
For example, c4, those pawns here are becoming weak. The bishop pair is pretty strong. I think that this was a typical Magnus type of decision. So I was very surprised that he didn't go for it. I'm still a bit puzzled actually. And he played rook e1. And now of course Fishy played bishop d6, preventing knight e5 forever. So that was...
which he should have played one move earlier.
Exactly. Yeah, he should have played bishop d6. So that's good to point out. Exactly. He should have played bishop d6 immediately to prevent that idea of knight e5. He went rook e8, giving us the chance to discuss this option of knight takes c6, and only after rook e1 he adjusted his mistake. Magnus played c3, which is of course a logical move, h6, and now queen f1.
Remarkable decision, right? To put the queen on next to the king. It's not something you see every day. But
yeah, I recall a game in Chennai where he even put the queen on h1.
Yeah.
So at some point I was expecting something like h3, king h2, queen h1, but maybe that's too much for a World Championship match.
A little bit over the top, yeah, but it's something you can expect from Magnus indeed. But the idea of h3 is very interesting because it's asking the bishop what it's going to do.
Right.
And on h5 it's not ideally placed, as we will soon see.
Yeah, let's just see. Because Vichy, he didn't even wait for h3. He played bishop h5 immediately.
Yeah, and I think this is the moment where White had an other interesting option. He could have played knight h4 here, right?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Once again. Yeah, I believe that with his last move, bishop h5, Black has the positional threat of bringing his bishop to e4. And once the bishop is there, I think Black is just doing fine. Perhaps even more than fine. I think Black is very comfortable.
I think it's good to point out that Black is playing with an isolated queen pawn, which is sometimes considered to be a weakness. But on the other hand, Black is trying to compensate that weakness by activating his pieces. And if he indeed gets his bishop activated to e4, he will be doing more than fine, in my opinion. But the move knight h4 would have prevented that.
Exactly. So knight h4 was definitely the way to stop this bishop from entering on g6. He didn't do that. He played h3, which gave Vichy the chance to bring his bishop to g6 and later on to e4. He didn't bring it immediately to e4. He played rook a8 first. Yeah, very comfortable position, right? I think Vichy was probably quite happy at this point. What do you think?
Yeah, actually, I felt a bit strange during the game while I was watching it live, because I think Black is doing fine, but I cannot really imagine that Magnus was really worried about his position. It's the kind of positions he is used to play. He even accepts to play slightly inferior positions, right. And Black is doing fine, but Magnus has something to play for. It's in the long term, the pawn on d5 can become a target for the white pieces. So
yeah, what he did here was really remarkable in my view. It's something sometimes he makes this kind of decisions which would never even enter my brain, which is probably the reason why he is where he is and I am where I am. But he took on c6, b takes c6. Well, this for me would be, reinforcing Black's pawn on d5. It looked odd to me, but then he followed up with c4. And the Engines didn't like it. They were all shouting that Black is better here. But actually, in just a few moves, Magnus is the one who has a very, very pleasant advantage. So whatever the objective value is here of this knight takes c6 and c4, it worked out miraculously well. What do you think about this decision?
Yeah, apparently it confused Vichy. The fact that Magnus changed the course of the game. I'm pretty sure that Vichy was kind of happy with the position he had. But the problem is that in such kind of positions, play is not forced at all, and both sides have a lot of possibilities here. I mean, there are ideas to play to put a rook on the b file, or queen to b7, or play a5, bishop b4. Put a knight or bishop on e4 there, just to point out that both sides have a lot of ideas.
Right.
And this is probably something Vichy probably doesn't like too much.
You mean he prefers a clear-cut strategic game? You mean?
No, that's what he got yesterday. That's he really excelled in that kind of position.
That's definitely true. Yeah, that's an interesting point actually. Yeah, that might be completely. Well, in any case,
let's see how
we can already. I mean, he played bishop e4. That looked natural, but bishop d4. He then played knight h7, which is, I don't know, felt a little bit. Okay, I'm always a bit hesitating to criticize moves of very strong players. But this one didn't really feel, it's decentralizing the knight. I don't know. C takes d5, bishop takes d5, and this is what I meant. In a few moves, he managed to favorably change the course of the game. And very pleasant position. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. It changed a lot. And I was actually not sure if Black should really have recaptured with the bishop on d5. Perhaps c takes d5 was another interesting option.
Right.
But there is still something to play for with white. He has a majority on the queen side, so in a lot of endgames, this could become an asset for white.
Yeah, of course, if we were to take all the pieces of the board except for the kings, then white simply wins this king and pawn endgame, of course. So that's always something to watch out for. Long term, white has good prospects here.
Yeah, I think just the last two moves. I mean, it's very hard to criticize indeed, but I really feel that moves like bishop e4 and knight to h7 are a step in the wrong direction.
Yeah, I had exactly the same feeling during the game. Let's see, because I think Magnus, what he did here is he really played very precise. He took on e8 first, rook takes e8, and queen d3.
Nice move, centralizing the move. The queen is coming.
Centralizing, queen comes back in the game, and he's preparing to put pressure on the d file, but also he's preparing this little knight maneuver to f5, which might also prove very unpleasant for. So I really like this move, queen d3. In general, I think Magnus has fantastic feeling for harmony of the pieces. Of course, it's good to point out that bishop takes a2. Well, I didn't even look at it during the game, but I suppose it's simply b3.
Yeah, runs into b3.
It's already too much, yeah? It just gets trapped, probably.
Yeah, and later on also ideas like bishop c5 and exploiting the pin along the d file.
Right. Yeah.
So
that, of course, was never going to happen. Vichy continued to reroute his knight to f8. And yeah, knight h4. This is an interesting moment. This looked very strong to me initially, knight h4, yeah, bringing the knight to f5. But well, we could see quickly how the game went. He played bishop e5.
I think very good move actually, trading off that.
Very important move. And after the exchanges, after this exchange, which didn't happen in the game, rook takes e5, f4. It's very important to point out that rook e8, knight f5. Now black has the very strong move queen e6. Because bishop takes d5, c takes d5. Seems to win a pawn at first.
But there's the powerful reply queen to b6 check.
Yeah, and then still you might think that queen d4 saves the pawn on b2, but that runs into a very nasty trick, rook d8.
And the point is that after queen takes b6 you have an intermediate check.
You have an intermediate check, and that ends it immediately. So that long line, which I don't know the players if they saw it or not, but it was pretty important because that means that probably the sequence with knight h4 just didn't, wasn't really the best. And I think that bishop c3 was a very interesting option here, just to keep all options open.
And it's a very nice move, and it improves the strength of the forces along the d file.
Right.
Because now the move knight to h4 is becoming more threatening.
Imagine we make a move. Okay, it's even giving away the pawn, but let's say we pass. Now knight h4 is much stronger because not only is the knight threatening to come to f5, but also the bishop on d5 is hanging now.
Exactly. So bishop c3 is an amazing move, a very subtle move, and it surprised me a little bit that a player of Magnus' caliber didn't go for it, or he
I believe he might have miscalculated something here after knight h4, because after bishop e5, I mean obviously he took on d5 here, queen takes d5 came, bishop takes e5, queen takes e5, a lot of exchanges, b3. Knight e6, and yeah, actually at this point, for me it was difficult to imagine that black could lose this position. Of course, the structure is clearly still favorable for white, but it's just too little to count on the win here.
Yeah, and that's because some pieces have been traded off, and I think in general black should avoid the pawn endings or knight endgames in general. But if he at least keeps a rook or queen on the board, he will be able to generate counterplay.
Because, for example, in the queen endgame, the king will always be slightly exposed because white already played h3 and g3. So those weaknesses, they will not really play so much of a role.
Yeah, and okay, if white plays carelessly as well, then there are always ideas for black to play a5, a4, and try to liquidate the queen side.
Right.
So,
well, let's just see, because Vichy, I think, he played pretty normal. He exchanged the rooks. We can go through all this pretty fast. Rook d5 was... Magnus pointed out in the press conference he didn't like his move queen e2. He thought it was a lazy move, he said. And he liked much more queen c2.
Interesting.
Because he pointed out that now after rook d5, he said that he had. Well, I actually don't see what he had here. Do you see it? Maybe simply he meant that after rook takes d5, c takes d5, you have queen c8 check now.
King h7.
And something like queen b7 maybe? Or d7,
Yeah.
queen d7. Attacking both d5 and a7.
Would be an improvement, but okay, still in many endgames, also the d-pawn can become a trump for black.
And also I'm wondering if this is really so much something like
And queen b2 or
say here. Yeah, I thought it's nice to prevent queen d7. Maybe that queen b2 is also fine. I was thinking that maybe I can still play queen d2 here.
All right. Yes, you're right.
But it's all very, very small. It's minor details here. I think it's all rather equal.
It's definitely multiple.
I actually expected the game to end very quickly here, so we can just rook d5. Magnus exchanged. He put his knight on e5. Queen went to f5. I'm just going through it rather fast because it's a rather dry position, and as I said, I expected the game to end very soon. Queen d7, queen e5, knight e6. Nice piece arrangement, I think, yeah, from black.
Yeah, I mean the problem is that white cannot really activate his queen and knight because then the d-pawn will start running. So I think it's very hard to make progress with white. And I think
at this point I thought that maybe it's black who. Oh, I think it's a dead draw. Don't get me wrong, but I think if someone is playing, I think I was thinking it's actually not white anymore at this point.
Okay, if black is allowed here to play 2 or 3 moves, he will play d4, knight g5, queen c6, and then you see the weaknesses on the king side are very unpleasant to face for white. So I mean there are some chances for black if white doesn't take care.
Yeah, that's why I was a bit surprised that Magnus went king g3. And instead of going d4, which I think in the press conference Vichy said he should have played, he played queen b5. Well, nothing really wrong with this, but after knight f4, knight takes f4, king takes f4. Even here I think it's all perfectly fine, but he gave a check. And then went d4.
You have to be really careful because the d-pawn can just also become a weakness. Now the white king is pretty close to it.
Exactly, yeah, it felt a bit strange to me. And also in the press conference, because as I mentioned, I watched the entire press conference, and he mentioned that he actually, after queen e8 check, king h7, queen takes f7, he was originally planning to give a check on c3 and follow it up with d3.
But then there is something like queen to f3? Or?
Queen f3, exactly, pinning the pawn, and that's just the end. The pawn will just fall. Yeah. So that was really, I mean, that must have been quite of a shock. He did say he quickly spotted queen d2 afterwards, instead of queen c3 check. But even here I felt that Magnus should have had some chances. I don't know, what do you think?
Well, actually, what I think is that, again, like in the previous match, Anand tries to force matters in endgames, liquidating, cooperating with his opponent. And I'm not sure it was really needed to do that. He could have retained the knights on the board, protect all the pawns and everything. And I didn't see a real way for white to take advantage of that.
That's a good point you make, yeah. I think it's a very good point you make. He tries to... just to kill the game, but instead of doing that, he gets himself in small problems all the time.
Yeah, just when you try to force matters, it's often working against you. So I think this is a mistake which he made again. And if I'm not mistaken, he did it as well in game 2 or game 1 even.
Yeah, in game 1 as well, got him into serious trouble. Yeah. So he has to take care of, definitely.
Yeah.
Here I thought that king e4, d3, and king d4 was still a very tricky try. The idea is that, let's say if you make a move like queen c2, in order to try to promote, I will give a check on f5.
The king moves.
And now I don't take on d3 because, well, I can just make the moves on the board. After queen takes d3, you will give a check here. and after I move the king, you will also take here. Instead of that, because your pawn is again pinned, I have the time to play the move f4 first.
Yeah, and
your pawn is not running away, so white will keep an extra healthy pawn.
Yeah, queen e2 is important move. Yeah,
yes, exactly. That's why queen e2 is the right move. And here, well, probably if the queen f5 check, king h8, we transpose to the line I just mentioned.
Yeah, because you're forced to take. There's no pin.
Exactly. There's no more pin on the pawn. And in this position, initially I thought that I could try to prove an advantage here for white.
Yeah, but I think your endgame technique is letting you down here. Yeah, this should be a dead draw. I think.
Yeah, I guess so. No, I guess you're right. Actually, I realized it, Robbie. Yeah, but I was hoping, to bring my pawn up and then maybe to get some, to get this round up this a pawn. I was hoping that this king, because it's a bit out, I can play with 2 pieces against 1 on the queen side and try to, to play a bit. I'm sure that Carlsen would also have tried a bit here, but you're probably right that it's a draw, definitely.
Sure.
Let's see the game quickly because that was pretty straightforward. King h8, queen, h4. This was not such a bad idea because after d3, he was planning to go g5, actually starting an attack on the queen.
Actually, it reminds me now that in game 1, if we remember well, the white king on a1 was also in some queen endgame. There was some mating net.
Of course.
White were trying to get a pawn on b3.
Yeah, exactly.
Here, white could get the same, with like d6.
Because after queen e2, king g2, d2, g6, it's exactly what we were discussing in game 1. For those of you who haven't seen it, check that video because that's a very funny coincidence. Here, black can queen, but it will only give him a mate, so that's not very advisable. And in general, it's very difficult to stop that mate. Probably queen e8 is forced, but then we can pick up the pawn with queen d3. So, okay, this was a tricky line, but okay, Anand stayed cool. Instead, he just took the pawn on a2. And yeah, okay, at this point there are just no more tries left. Yeah, Magnus played queen e6. Still playing with that idea of going g5, g6, but after queen d2, queen e8, they repeated moves and the draw was agreed. Well, what do you think, Robbie?
I think it was not the most exciting game of the match, as I said in the first minutes of the video. But still, there were some very nice, subtle ideas for both sides, which could have been implemented in the game. Okay, I think both sides had some little chances to play a bit better. Fischer was doing very well out of the opening, but in the middle game, end game, there were some chances for white to put some pressure on black.
Yes.
And even black got back into the game. Fischer managed to defend very, very nicely by trading off the dark squared bishops with bishop e5.
Yeah, that was a very important defensive move, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I think a draw is a fair result. If both sides don't grab their chances, then that's how chess is, right? So.
Well, I just want to ask you one more question, because in the press conference, one journalist said, he asked the players who they felt had the psychological advantage at this point in the match, and my feeling is, I don't know if you agree with me, that at this point I think Vichy, he's really happy because he managed to hold this dry Magnus style kind of position today. He is pressing constantly with white. The first game with white he was pressing a lot, although Magnus made a draw and even was pushing in towards the end. In the third game he beat him with the white pieces very convincingly. So with white he's very confident. With black, if he can hold his games, I think he feels very good. What do you think?
I'm not really sure. It's very difficult to judge. What I think is that Fischer is especially happy with the fact that he managed to win at least one game, not 4 draws, and this should give him confidence for the remaining games.
Right.
I think the longer the match takes, the better chances for Fischer are. I think Magnus is not always that stable with his nerves, so I'm not entirely sure. On the other hand, Magnus had his chances as well. He can put pressure on Fischer in games like this, and okay, this time it didn't work out well for him, but next time he Yeah,
he was pressing, of course, but yeah, he didn't really show his usual precision when it came to this subtle, dry kind of play. Yeah.
And let's not forget that in Chennai, after 4 rounds, it was still 2-2, if I'm not mistaken.
And by game 10 they finished the match. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's good.
So I mean, everything can happen, and a lot will be decided in the next rounds.
Yeah, well, Robbie, tomorrow is a rest day, so we will not be back, but we will definitely be back for round 5. I think I want to thank you again for making this video with me, and I hope everybody enjoyed it. And keep the match, keep watching the match, because I think it's getting more exciting every day. What do you think, Robbie?
It's a great match, and I can't wait till the rest day is over.
Yeah,
so
actually, the rest days are really annoying, aren't they? Yeah.
Yeah, especially after each 2 rounds there's one, so we have to be patient. But
too many rest days.
There will be a lot.
Thank you again, and I hope to see you all soon. Leave your comments, leave your Twitter remarks, everything. We are available, and thank you very much for watching. Bye bye.
See you guys.